Hello and welcome back to the One United podcast. I'm joined as ever by Henry. Henry, how you doing?
Yes, I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. Very excited for this one, and we're joined today by Gaz. Gaz, you probably know him from Full Time Devils or Radio Manchester. So, Gaz, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. I'm all right. It would have been a lot worse today had United been battered at the weekend. So, a nice 0-0 draw.
Yeah, it's a bit depressing to say, but we're sort of clinging on to any positive at the minute, aren't we? Now, we'll sort of get into it on that note then, obviously. But it's brilliant to have you on, Gaz. We just want to start off sort of with your beginnings. Obviously, you started in radio. You know, you're part of Full Time Devils when they were around. So, sort of, how did you get into media to start with?
Right, so I'm going to get my dates all wrong here because I can't remember what age I was at each specific date. But always wanted to work in radio since I was a kid. Not necessarily in the sports side of it. I just wanted to be a radio presenter and Can I swear, by the way, on this?
Yeah.
Am I okay to swear?
Yeah, that's fine.
I just wanted to be a general gobshite, basically. So always wanted to do that, but always loved United at the same time. Ticket has been, I think it's either the 2005 to 6 season or 6 to 7 season I started going. But that's when I've had my season tickets since. And then they sort of just merged into one eventually. Like I was getting into radio and I was presenting on a few stations in Stoke. And then I started on Full Time Devils. Basically, I just stumbled across this little YouTube channel that was, I think at the time, it was getting like under 10,000 views or under like 5,000 views and stuff on every video. And I just messaged him saying, you know, I want to be a presenter, but I'm also a massive, passionate United fan. I'm a season ticket holder at United, season ticket holder at Old Trafford. All my family have always been Reds. I've always been a Red. Can I get involved? And they were all really keen at the time, just get you in. Get you on camera and have a laugh, and that's essentially what it is and what it was. It was a good laugh for a long time. I think that must have been when that was the Moyes season. I'm pretty sure. So I think it would have been maybe 2013 around then. But yeah, and then I was with them up until they ceased to exist in their in that form and turned into Stretford Paddock, and now I'm just at the BBC and on Radio Manchester, and I do a sports show. Actually, it's called Talking Balls, weekdays 6 till 7 p.m. Gotta get the plug in there. All things United and City, and yeah, that's where I'm at now.
It's definitely. Sorry, I'm trying to get you off. I have technical difficulties seemingly every episode.
I mean, on my screen, I'm gone.
Well, while I've got you on the screen, then I'll ask you sort of. There we go. So obviously, you showed a lot of hindsight in picking the Full Time Devils and so early on, and you know they've sort of grown into what was the biggest fan channel for Manchester United at the time. Now, you know when you joined them, did you see them sort of progressing as far as they did?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I wasn't even thinking. It wasn't necessarily. I didn't expect that to happen. It was more the whole fan channel landscape didn't really exist, so I didn't even know there was a market for this sort of thing. And I'll be totally honest, from a personal perspective, with me, I must have been about 18, 19, or maybe even younger when I started on Full Time Devils. So it was very much just, you know, I love Manchester United. I want to talk about Manchester United. I love, you know, chatting with people who are just as passionate as me about it. So to get the opportunity to do that, it was just good fun to do that in front of a camera as well, especially because, you know, as I said, at the time when I was 18, I was sort of pushing my way into the radio industry. I hadn't had, you know, a full-time job as such yet. I just had little work experience gigs here and there. So for me, it was all great experience at the time. But like I say, the main thing was just I just enjoyed talking about United, and it's weird because I never really saw, despite all the fan channel stuff, I never really saw me doing football related stuff as a career or anything until it actually happened. And you know, now I get to talk about the football every day on the radio. But the fan channel stuff was always just a laugh, really. I just enjoyed it. But like I say, I was a kid when I started it, really. I was like 17, 18. So it's always been fun.
Well, just sort of sticking on the line of fan channels then, you know, as you grew to, you know, such a big size, was there ever any sort of, you know, bitterness or sort of competitiveness within sort of the presenters, you know, as you all made a name for yourself? Was there ever any sort of battle for power among anyone?
I'd say there were certain ideas that were put forward at the start, well, not even at the start, all throughout my time there, that maybe I wasn't a big fan of, because like I say, I wasn't. At the end of the day, I was in that game because I enjoyed it, and I wasn't really thinking, what's going to get a big reaction. I was just thinking, I don't want to. I could come out on camera. This might sound arrogant, but I could put out a video tomorrow that gets 100,000 views by going on and saying Harry Maguire's a donkey. We need to sell him right now. He's a disgrace to the club. He's not fit to wear the shirt. None of that I actually believe. None of that I actually think is true. But it would be something that would get a reaction. And I was never really about that. I wasn't going to just say something just for a reaction. And I remember sort of there were certain, I guess some people at the channel that did want a reaction and did want an argument. Whereas for me, I just wanted a discussion, really. But I wasn't a big fan of the way that, because, like you say, maybe a bit of bitterness being caused because people in their own right got followers, and then certain people on fan channels started to believe they were a celebrity because they were on a fan channel and they talk about football, which to me is madness. Really, it's like it's like saying you're a celebrity because you write for a fanzine. You're not a celebrity, really. And I think it got to the point that because I think some people maybe got so many followers that they thought their opinion holds more weight to another person's, and that's absolutely not true. We're all just Manchester United fans. It's a fan channel for fans. It's not for famous fans. It's not for celebrities. It's just for fans. So if you think being on a fan channel gives your voice more credibility than someone who's not, and also just the same, I suppose, with what I do, if you think you're on the radio and that gives you more credibility than someone else, it doesn't. We're all just Manchester United fans with opinions. Sometimes we disagree. Sometimes maybe we get in little arguments and little tiffs, but nothing too serious. And I just think there was a sort of environment at times from some people that maybe they were more about getting the views and getting the clicks than the actual content. Like, I mean, I don't really mind saying, I remember early days, I remember someone on the channel turning around and saying, we need more women on the channel. And I remember being like, yeah, absolutely agree. We, at the minute, it's an absolute cockfest here. We need some women on the channel. We need to be more representative. This is absolutely right. And then this person, like, I remember saying, yeah, but it needs to be someone attractive. And I was like, what? What are you fucking talking about? Let's just get someone who is knowledgeable and someone who is passionate about United. And they're like, yeah, but that won't get the clicks. And I just remember being horrified at that point. And I don't even know if it was a joke or if it was serious or what. But at that point, that really pissed me off. So things like that, I didn't like.
Yeah, it's definitely, sort of interesting to look at from an outside point of view about how it all works. But, just sort of sticking on this line of questioning, then we're seeing it more and more in the media, especially sort of coming to mind TalkSport, where people are, sort of going, I'd assume, against their own views, saying something on purpose just to get clicks. Now, how much of a threat do you think this is to actual, credible sort of fan channels to begin with, and then general journalism moving forward?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a threat to fan channels. I think fan channels, it's so easy to be tarred. Everyone gets tarred with the same brush, and I guess it's understandable in a way, because it's like, if you're a fan channel and you put out a really inflammatory video, I guess if you're someone else who contributes to that channel, then you're contributing to the discourse, if you like, by being on that channel, which I understand is, me essentially criticizing myself a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely a threat, because, like I say, everyone gets tarred with the same brush. In fact, you've had stuff happen on other fan channels, which then I've been attacked for. And I'm talking like, sorry, my screen's shaking. I'm not talking, attacked on Twitter. I'm talking like physically attacked in the street. Like, it's happened multiple times, because someone who lives 100 miles away from me has said something mad about United, probably someone who wasn't even a United fan 5 years ago. So it absolutely is a threat to fan channels, and whether they'll ever have true credibility amongst particularly match-going Manchester United fans is a question which I'm not sure I'm not sure they ever will, really.
Yeah, it's definitely something interesting to think about. And I'll come to you, Henry. Obviously, you know, I remember first watching, you know, fan channels at sort of like I said, sort of 2013 sort of time when, you know, the full-time Devils were coming big, the United stand was growing as well. And that just seemed like raw fan opinions from outside the ground. Whereas now, do you think it's just sort of becoming a little bit too commercial for an honest fan opinion?
Well, I think that the big problem now is that, well, everyone kind of has an opinion, which is fair enough, you know. But the people that have the most outgoing and, I don't know, I guess they're not being honest themselves, but they get the most views. So the worry is that people turn towards that so instantly, like with Talksport, they probably weren't getting the views they're getting now because they weren't as controversial. So if you're controversial, people will look at it and think, you know, they might look at it for 20 seconds and think this is shit, I'm going to turn it off. But it starts a conversation. So straight away, you've got them going, okay, right, that's basically clickbait, or, you know, just say something outgoing. That's what I say to their presenters. Just say something outgoing, say something utterly ridiculous, and you'll get more views for it. So that's the problem we've got now. Whereas like 5 years ago, you'd see people with just being honest, and that's again, that's all you can ask of someone, just being honest. You know, that no opinion is right or wrong. Obviously, unless it's borderline criminal, which some things that I've heard before are. So yeah, no opinion is right or wrong. So, you know, the best you can ask of people is that they give their honest take on things. But it's getting to a stage now where it's all just for views. And I hope, I mean, I've seen Five Live a little bit kind of go towards that, but I hope they don't, because I grew up listening to them, and they're you know, credible to me, and I think some of the stuff they come out with is fantastic. So I hope they don't go towards the Talksport kind of thing, where they decide.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I'm just curious what you've said there about Five Live. Just curious on your sort of opinion on it, on the way that they're going and how things are changing. Like, how do you think that they're just chasing the views?
I guess some of the guests they have on at times, you think it's just little comments. It's not anything major now. Talksport is the one that really winds me up now, but it's nothing major, but just little comments, and you think, I hope they're not leaning towards that kind of just for views sort of thing, because everyone seems to be doing it at the moment. So if you hear one comment, you instantly think, oh, right, okay, I hope that isn't the case, because, you know, and it's not usually the presenters, it's usually guests they bring on. And it's just, I just don't like it. I mean, they're supposed to be the ones that, you know, as journalists, or, you know, if you want to go into presenting, you look up to, and I hope it doesn't go down that route, because at the end of the day, yes, they'll get more views, but they'll just lose credibility, and that for me would be borderline heartbreaking, because I grew up listening to them all the time, and it's, you know, it's almost painful to listen to at times.
It's very interesting, really, because you want to strike a balance, don't you? And you want people who are, for example, say if I was a producer at Five Live, and, you know, I work with producers from Five Live and stuff, and I'm looking for fans who I want to get on, and I know for a fact they're trying to go for a younger audience. And I'm not talking like kids here. I'm talking like just, you know, maybe under 40, really, which is different to the type of person who would listen to Five Live normally. And I think they are trying to go for a younger audience, so they maybe are going for younger fans. And I guess it's quite easy for a producer from one of these stations literally just to type in Manchester United fan into Twitter, and the first people that come up are the most inflammatory YouTubers going. So I guess that maybe you could say there's a bit of laziness there, and they're not actually, you know, looking into these people and vetting them. But at the same time, I understand why they want people who connect with a younger audience on their radio station.
I think with stations like that, I think I don't want to say, I guess you've got to be careful, really, because you've got a reputation to kind of hold up, but at the same time, obviously, as you said, you want to connect with younger fans and stuff. So I guess your reputation is going to take a bit of a hit if you do, you know, if you get a certain guest on and they have a comment that people think is out of order or something, which does happen on radio stations. I mean, we're even starting to see it on. They're stopping asking fans on MUTV about, what do you think of the game, blah blah blah, because they just mentioned how the Glazers are a pile of shit. So, we've seen it happen progressively throughout radio now, and I just think, you can do it for views, but I think that still damages. People notice that.
Yeah.
So, some people do. Some people maybe just think, oh, funny, whatever. But people that are actually like reading into it a bit notice when they're doing it for the listeners and the clicks, and it's just it's not good to see. I don't like it. It's but again, that's personal opinion. Other people might.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's absolutely it's your opinion and stuff. And I can't speak for what happens at TalkSport. However, plenty of times you're listening to TalkSport and it does feel like one person has been briefed to have this opinion and the other person has been told to have the opposite, and it's kind of obvious when you're listening. I will say on 5 Live, I've been on 5 Live as a guest a few times as part of the squad. And that's mainly because of my show on Radio Manchester, which is literally the floor above it at the BBC. And there has never been any time on 5 Live where someone has sat me down and asked what my opinion is on a topic before I actually say it on the radio, or they've ever said, maybe don't say that, maybe veer away from that. I've never had anything like that. And even going the other way now, because I've seen what has happened with fan channels and with how successful they can be by basically being inflammatory and starting arguments. When we first started our show on Radio Manchester, like I say, the whole point of the show is talking balls. Is I'm the United fan and I have my mate Kyle Walker, not that one, but funnily enough, he is a City fan. And we essentially go at it for an hour. But I said straight away when they said that, I was like, yeah, but we can't go at it every day because there's going to be plenty of topics that we agree on. And if we agree on a topic, I'm not going to pretend to disagree with him just because of the show. So we never do that. We start the show and we talk about topics we agree with, and we will just have a discussion about the topic. We're not looking for callers who disagree with us. We're not looking for callers who agree with us. You can just call in and have a chat about it. And that's just what I've had from doing my show. And who knows that maybe it won't be as successful. I know that the Rajar figures have done all right for the show, but maybe people want to listen to more inflammatory, argumentative stuff. The more casual football fan. Which is obviously the majority of football fans, I guess. But I massively don't want to go that way.
No, I guess because it will damage. I guess it would damage your credibility and probably damage you personally if you thought, okay, I'm leaning towards that. But it seems to be, from what I can see, the people with the most followers on Twitter are the people that say the most ridiculous things. So I think Goldbridge is fantastic with some of the stuff he comes out with. He's, a little bit, a bit of a lunatic when it comes to some of the stuff he says. Not necessarily controversial, just funny, but very out there. And I think that that's what gets you, to where you can be. So, the people with the most followers are usually the ones that not only speak the loudest, but say the things that people. You get 10K followers just for having a rant about one player. Yeah. That's to the stage kind of where we're at now, and it's I don't know, frustrating, I guess, to a degree, because the more credible journalists are the ones that are not being listened to as much.
So. No, yeah, I'd agree with that, guys. I'd agree. Oh, I can't hear you.
James, your mic's.
Sorry, I muted myself. We're just going to bring it back to the comments because we've had some really brilliant comments come in. First one from Alan, who I'm assuming is a question for you guys. He's saying, do you think fan cams open a new dimension for public opinion, but did it lead to bringing in more power to reactions than constructive opinions? I think that's a really, really great question. So what are your sort of opinions on that one?
It's a really great point, actually. And often, I suppose they can be quite forgotten as well. The fans who can't, get to Old Trafford week in, week out, and, not 1 minute am I saying that they're any less of a Manchester United fan, or are they any less as passionate about Manchester United as any of us on the channel. But maybe the idea with fan channels at first was that this is for everyone, you know what I mean? And despite the fact that I remember on Full Time Devils, our most popular location was always Manchester. Or that's what I was told anyway. It was nice seeing like a more broad fan base come in and feel like they can be connected with United and connected with United fans through us. I always quite liked that. I know a lot of people sort of use it as a stick to beat us with, but I have to see absolutely no problem with it, and I loved it. But yeah, I absolutely agree with the fact that the controversial opinions are always going to be the more popular ones, aren't they?
Yeah, without a doubt. Just sort of building on that then, do you think, obviously there's a big, I know certainly in the past there's been claims that fan channels are purely there to sort of benefit off the club's failures. Now, it's obvious, it goes without saying, we use Arsenal Fan TV as an example. Their views skyrocket when they lose a game and they get rants on their channel. But, how far do you agree with this statement? Because, I get that people would like to watch a rant more, but would you agree that they're sort of benefiting off the club's failures?
So maybe on the Arsenal side of things, just talking purely as a club here, not talking about fan channels, I can see where they're coming from maybe, because if Arsenal won the league, I don't think the content on Arsenal Fan TV, there wouldn't be many non-Arsenal fans watching that, but obviously more Arsenal fans would watch it. However, there aren't as many Arsenal fans as there are Manchester United fans around the world. And I'll say that if Manchester United won the league when Full Time Devils was in its pomp, I think the channel would have doubled in subscribers from Manchester United fans. I think every single video towards the end of the season, if Manchester United won the league, would have been getting over 100,000 views. I think it would have been so incredible for the channel. And it would have been so amazing to be involved in the channel as well when United won the league. Obviously, I was involved, when we've won trophies in the past, when we won the FA Cup with Van Gaal, when we won the Europa League, even though I wasn't there for that one. And all those videos do so well. So to suggest that fan channels are there to take advantage of us not doing well, it's just moronic, really. It doesn't really make any sense, because I genuinely would say that Full Time Devils would have been even more successful, if you want to use that word, successful, even more popular, let's say, had Manchester United won a league title.
Yeah, I never sort of thought of it that way, but it's a really good point. You see Liverpool fan channels are sort of boosting now. I know definitely Redmen TV, they're coming into sort of my eye line a lot more often than they were before they won the league. But, I just sort of want to bring it back a bit then, because you mentioned about the incident where you wanted to hire more women on Full Time Devils, and there was a comment about appearance. Now, me and Henry spoke to her name's Kendall. She's a Twitter account who's a big Newcastle fan, and she was saying that she sort of feels undermined a lot of the time by men who comment on her appearance to sort of undervalue her opinions. Now, how big of an issue do you think this is in sort of the football media world, whether it's just people on Twitter or whether it goes higher up to sort of the big media companies?
So I think higher up, just speaking from my own experience, I think a lot of things are changing for a positive. I think there's, I work with so many incredible women and female journalists who are just vastly more knowledgeable than me. Not like they need to, compensate for being a woman, but that has sort of almost felt like what it's like at the past. Like if you're a woman, for example, let's talk about the Alex Scott situation with her getting gigs as a pundit. She is so much more knowledgeable than most male pundits, and she has to be more knowledgeable than them, because that's the only way she'd get that job. If she was as knowledgeable as them and she was making ridiculous statements like we see pundits make all the frigging time, she wouldn't get that gig. She wouldn't. If Alex Scott went and pronounced a player's name wrong, like male pundits do all the time, you'd have people on Twitter going at her. So I think higher up it's changing. It still has a bit to go, and it still is getting there, and it will get there eventually. But as for people on Twitter, I really don't know what we do about that, because there's power that comes with anonymity for some people, and people are willing to make an absolute arse of themselves just because it'll get them attention. So people are willing to make not only offensive remarks, but remarks that they know are uneducated, remarks that they know are stupid, just because it gets a reaction and just because their name's hidden and no one can find them. And that is the truth. Like, no one can find them. People can post any sort of abuse on Twitter, and there's nothing the person being abused can actually do to stop them. You can report them to Twitter. What's that going to do? They're going to set up a new account next week. It doesn't really mean anything. And I think that's really sad, to be honest, because I think the vast majority of them, I'd say 99% of them, are lonely little boys in their mum's basement, and they're just scrambling for some sort of attention, especially when they're aiming it at women. I feel like maybe it's because of a lack of female attention that they've had in their life so far. So they feel like they need to take it out on let's face it, this woman who has got a job they could only dream of having, but they can't have because they're shit at what they do. That, you know, they're not as good at what they do as this person, and that doesn't sit right with some people who just have a fundamental hatred for women, I think. And it's not just women, you know, there's obviously people from black and majority ethnic backgrounds as well. We see a lot of that, and I do think a lot of it stems from bitterness of their own lives.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a problem moving forward that we definitely have to face. But I just sort of wanted to sort of head towards the talking about the end of Full-Time Devils and the birth of Stretford Paddock. So obviously, I don't, if there's people out there who don't know, do you want to just sort of go over how that came about and why they sort of rebranded in the way that they did?
I'm the wrong person to ask. So from my perspective of things, because I'm not involved in Stretford Paddock at the minute, so, you know, I don't really mind saying it. From my perspective of things, just before lockdown, I got a call from the guys at Full-Time Devils, basically saying that we're not going to be continuing the channel soon because obviously what they do, and to film what they film, and to get someone to edit it and to get people to present it, you know, there is some cost to it. And they did essentially say, you know, there's no money left. there's nothing left in the pot. We can't travel to games, we can't travel to away games, we can't take a cameraman, we can't do all that. So we've got nothing left, basically. So then I was like, all right, okay, cool. For me, it was just like a little side thing, always has been, that I've always just enjoyed as a sort of side project along with my main job. Not like I'd ever think of it as a job, really. But yeah, that was the instance I got from it. And then all of a sudden, Stretford Paddock came out the woodwork and came out of nowhere and became as well. It's doing what it's doing. I know they've got a football club, apparently. Yeah, I didn't really feel any obligation, or I didn't really want to go out of my way to try and get back on the channel, or to see if the guys want me back on the channel. Obviously, like, I text a load of the guys from it all the time, and we have them on our radio show. I have, they're my friends, my mates. I have, you know, I don't hold any grudges against the majority of the people. But at the end of the day, I was never asked to go on Stretford Paddock, so I'm not doing it. And I think, you know, that may be because, and maybe some people won't like this, but at the end of the day, I've got myself into a position now where I am a sports broadcaster. I am a presenter. That is my skill. That's my craft. That's my job. So obviously I do stuff like this. This is great. This is a podcast where three lads are having a chat and chilling out and having a chat. But if you're asking me to host and present something, I am going to need some sort of monetary incentive for me to do it, because it's my job and I can't keep doing it for free regularly. So yeah, maybe it was just a case that Stretford Paddock isn't a channel that has any money at all at the moment, and everyone's doing it for free. I have no idea. I've not asked the people on the channel, but I couldn't dedicate my time to that because I'm so busy at the moment actually working.
Yeah, it's very, it's good of you for being so honest as well. That's definitely not something that's brought to light, really. Now, you know, obviously, I was going to ask you about whether they sort of, this move has typified the sort of commercialism of fan channels. But obviously, if there is a point that they're genuinely running on sort of empty and they're just doing everything for free, then, you know, that's sort of fair enough. But, you know, you go on. Sorry.
So no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, I actually think that, I mean, this is a massive, like, a positive for Stretford Paddock and a massive compliment to them. It's actually done the total opposite, because Full Time Devils was owned by a sort of a commercial company. It was owned by Social Chain, who are, you know, are supposed to be a big multi-million-pound company, even though they never pay people on time. So you know, so that was a commercial venture, I suppose, because it was owned by a company. Even though I will say, every single person on the channel were the people who make the creative decisions. It was always the Manchester United fans who make the creative decisions. There was never anyone above saying, don't do that, don't do that. You've got to do this because it gets more views. The people on the channel were the ones making the decisions towards the end. But I guess Stretford Paddock now, they don't even have anyone above them. I don't know, maybe they do, but I don't think they do. So I guess that's just pure United content now, and it's just them talking about whatever they want to talk about. So, you know, full power to him.
Now, sort of speaking of fan channels, I've got a comment from All for United. I know you were briefly on them. So thoughts on how All for United is amazing, please. Obviously, I can back this one up. I'm a contributor on All for United, so I can back that up. But yeah, you briefly started. You sort of brought back your Twaman series on All for United, and now it obviously seems you've got things going on which sort of restrict that ability. But you know, you've got this big following now. Is there anything sort of in your mind that you can use this following to branch out into something else other than radio? You know, make something else of yourself in the mainstream media as well. Not that there's anything wrong with radio. It was just just genuine curiosity.
No, yeah, totally. I have no idea, to be honest, at the minute, mate. It's weird because I had my dream all my life was to make a living through being on the radio, of not necessarily in sports, but just being on the radio. And I'm going to be honest, if I'm looking to the future, I mean, maybe this isn't, some people might not like this, but my dream job is to work on Radio 1 and not to be talking about football, to be just talking about life and being a general idiot, which is essentially what I am. I'm a professional idiot. So I guess my future, I am sort of looking away from the sports stuff, which is weird because at the minute it seems like all my work comes from the sports stuff. But who knows? Oh, as for All for United, though, as for the channel, yeah, Ben's a great guy. He helped me out loads with This Week at Man United, bringing that back for a little bit. I'm going to probably be bringing that back soon. I don't know where it'll be, but I'll probably be bringing that back soon. And yeah, that was just a real like passion project of mine where I get to sort of talk about football but not talk about it too seriously and have a laugh. And because at the end of the day, it's like, look, I know we're all passionate about football, and don't get me wrong, it ruins my mood like anyone else when United lose, and it lifts my mood like anyone else when United win. But it's a game. It's a game, and it's supposed to be fun. We're supposed to enjoy it. We're supposed to, you know, maybe argue about it, but only for fun. It's supposed to be a laugh, and it's not supposed to be too serious all the time. And I didn't like it when I was on Full Time Devils and I was doing Twaman, where I do these daft little videos, and you have people commenting sometimes just like, oh, I just want to hear about transfer news, and I just want to hear about, you know, serious tactical discussions. And I'm like, why? Let's just have a laugh. It's a fucking game.
Yeah, there's that, you know, possibility that it's all getting a little bit too serious, and that's what I think, you know, All for United are doing quite well. They're getting a host of guests on that don't take themselves too seriously now. So I'll move on to sort of your radio career and in the mainstream media, but I'll hand it over to Henry unless he had anything to add before we move on.
I was just gonna ask about kind of how do you think that transition would go? So obviously you want to move into non-football radio. Have you thought about how that transition would go and how you kind of go about getting into something different? Because obviously you talk about football at the moment, and that's quite a specific kind of topic, I guess you could say. So how would you kind of go about moving forward into something different?
Well, what's interesting is I think that people often know me, and the only time I ever get recognised is from talking about football, and whether it be YouTube or Radio Manchester. However, I've been doing like commercial radio, as in non-sport stuff, for all about my whole career so far. So I was presenting on Capital when I was 20, and then I was a producer at XFM. presented on Signal One, and there at about 11 different radio stations around the country, and that was all non-sport stuff. Weirdly enough, a couple of years ago, the weirdest job I ever had was I was the breakfast presenter for Fix Radio, who are a radio station aimed at tradesmen and builders. I have never been a tradesman or a builder in my life, but still they gave me this gig, and I did that for a little bit. And then weirdly enough, similar to what I was telling you about before, this station ran out of money. And then literally I was like, shit, I don't have a job. Like, what am I going to do? And then luckily a couple of months later, I got a call from Radio Manchester, and they said, we're looking to start this football show. Do you want to be involved in it? And, you know, it's 5 days a week, every weekday. It's a great laugh. They don't take it too seriously. And I absolutely love it. Like, I love doing this show. Don't get me wrong. When I say one day I want to be on Radio 1, that is the truth. But I absolutely love doing Talking Balls. It's so fun. And it is a proper dream come true. But as for the transition, I think because I've already done music radio, because I've already done talk radio, I know I can already do it. I just need to sort of maybe get chatting to the right people and meeting the right people and schmoozing with the right people, and then we'll see how it goes. But at the minute, I'm not in any rush to take the next step. I'm just being laid back and taking it all as it comes, which I'm not going to lie, because I've been so desperate to sort of make it in this industry. This is probably the first time in my life where I've not had that anxiety to better myself or to better my career. And that is almost what I would describe as good anxiety that I had when I was younger, where it was like, right, you know, you can be doing better. You've always got to be trying to do better. And then now I'm sort of at that stage in my career where I'm like, you know what? I'm 25. I've made a living out of radio for the last 5 years, well, probably about 3-4 years really. And I'm on BBC Radio Manchester. I'm in a fucking great position, and I count my lucky stars every single day that I'm there, because as I hate these people that come out and are dead arrogant. I think it's really arrogant when you say stuff like it's nothing to do with luck. When people say it's all hard work, it's not all hard work. Every single successful person has been lucky at some point, and I've had my fair share of luck. I've had my fair share of bad luck, and I've had to work harder than other people because of my circumstances. But still, I've had my fair share of luck, and like I say, I count my lucky stars to be in the situation I'm in.
Well, we'll just bring this comment up then from All for United. I'm assuming from Ben. He says, what do you prefer, commercial radio or non-commercial radio? I used to love Radio 1, but since presenting commercial, I love it. You get so much personality, and short links is challenging. Ben.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that commercial radio, when I was there, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm going to be totally honest, and I'm sure that Ben will be able to relate to what I'm saying here, but when I was in the commercial radio, when I was on Signal 1 and that network of stations, I was on an overnight show, so it was like 1 a.m. till 6 a.m, and I'm going to be honest, like, the bosses didn't listen to my show. They genuinely didn't care what I did. So it wasn't so much the case in the job that I had, but in my experience in like the big shows on commercial radio, it does feel like there are a lot of constraints from management, and I remember being told at Capital, you can't be speaking for longer than 1 minute and 15 seconds. And to me, I didn't like that. I understand that there is a skill that comes with being able to get that personality in such a short period of time. But for me, I like just being myself, and if I want to, add colour to a story, and if I want to be able to ramble, I want to be able to sort of take it down a different tangent, if you like, and just have a general laugh with it. I don't constantly want to be thinking that like I'm a robot, and I don't constantly want to be thinking, right, this needs to be this long, this needs to be this long. So I kind of like Radio 1 for that. And I'm not going to lie, like, I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I love Radio 1, and I always have loved Radio 1. And, I'm not necessarily into commercial music. I'm not necessarily into chart music, but the presenters, I think, have always been so relatable to their target audience. And you saw it like when Nick Grimshaw stopped the breakfast show, and the reaction to that, it was a lot of people were like, oh, he was never any good anyway. Oh, I never liked him in the first place. But they were all old blokes. I was thinking, he's not for you. He's not for you. He's for younger people. And I think they've always been able to relate to that audience. And there's some really good presenters there, like Greg James, I adore. Jordan North, for me, sorry, if you don't know who Jordan North is, sorry, he's a presenter on Radio 1. But for me, he is like the presenter I want to be. He's a presenter I can sort of see myself being one day. So I still love Radio 1.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I know it's sort of lowering in the public eye, but you know, I've spent time working in a factory, and the Radio 1 was on all the time, and it's amazing how interesting you can still be in radio. You know, it's always sort of there to keep you company and stuff like that. But the problem that we've got going forward is obviously the advancements in technology and everything, and there's this threat that radio's going to eventually die out. Now, do you ever see that happening in your sort of career?
You know what's really sad, and this is very, very sad, but I'm now getting to the point, because of the absolute decimation of the radio industry. And let me just explain this to anyone. Sorry if I'm going on here. Tell me to shut up if I'm going on too long, but just explain it to anyone who doesn't understand what's happened with the radio industry and the commercial radio industry. Basically, the powers that are supposed to sort of control and regulate the industry and make sure there's enough local radio for each specific region and there's enough local, content going out, Ofcom, the rules sort of changed, and there was something called deregulation a couple of years ago. It might have even been just a year ago now, that essentially allowed the big radio companies, so the likes of Global, who own multiple radio stations, like Global owned Capital, they own Heart, they owned XFM, which then obviously became Radio X. They own a load of stations. Same with Bauer. It essentially gave them the power to buy all of these regional stations and merge them into one station. So to take one example, you had Capital, who had something like 11, 12 regional stations around the country. You have Capital Manchester, Capital Scotland, Capital North East, Capital North, that sort of thing, North Western Wales. And then when deregulation came in, each of these local stations, who all had like a breakfast show and a drive time show and a weekend show, local, coming from there with regional accents, with local presenters who know what's going on in the local community, they all got axed, and it all got turned into just one conglomerate, if you like, just one station. So like I've gone from, I can see how the radio landscape's changed now. I remember I'd put XFM on when I was younger. I'd listen to, Clint Boone, a Manchester legend. I'd hear him talking about Manchester stories with a Manchester sense of humour, playing Manchester music, talking about Manchester issues. And now I go on and I turn the exact same frequency on, and it's Radio X, and it's coming from London, and it's Johnny Vaughan. I love Johnny Vaughan. He's an incredible radio presenter, but I think Manchester should have its own show there as well. And at the moment, Manchester's in a situation where there is only one station that plays what I'd call heritage Manchester music, and that's XS Manchester. And even they, not long ago, were threatened with a rebrand. So there is literally no radio stations left. And it's not only the fact that there's barely any radio stations left, but it's the fact that all those people who lost their jobs, they've now flooded the market looking for jobs, obviously. So there's more competition and less jobs. So it's getting to the point now, and it's really sad, to go back to what I was saying, that kids sometimes come up to me and are like, how do I get in radio? And I'm genuinely saying just get as many skills as possible, because I don't think the industry is going to exist in its current form for very long, unless Ofcom come in and actually put the foot down and regulate it. I'd avoid getting into radio. I'd find something else, just because there's no jobs left. And I know the stress that it caused me looking for gigs and trying to get paid for work, and turning on the radio, hearing someone who is essentially crap but has got the gig because the dad's famous. And I've sat there, been working my arse off for the last 5 years for nothing, and I'm getting nowhere. And that was the feeling I got, and that's how stressed I got, and it's going to be 10 times worse now.
So is it fair to say that radio's sort of dying from within? It's not external sources that are really killing radio. The sort of the deep rooting issues are actually inside radio itself.
Absolutely. And you see how it's trying to change as well now. Like at the BBC, we have now BBC Sounds, which is essentially now the radio show that I do 6 till 7 p.m. is also a podcast. You just go on BBC Sounds and listen to it whenever you want. And it has to do that, otherwise it just won't exist. But there are so many problems with radio. Like I say, the fact that Ofcom allowed that to happen is, in my opinion, disgraceful. And then also so many little things like radars, which is how we actually look at the listening figures to radio. A lot of people don't know this, but to get listening figures for a radio station, they do something called radar books, where apparently they send books out to people's houses and you log what radio station you've listened to, and from that they gather the information and like multiply it by 100 or something and say, right, this is the radio's listening figures for the next 3 months or for the last 3 months. I have never met a single person in my life who has been given a radar book. So I don't know where this is supposed to be coming from, where this information is supposed to be coming from. But from that information, people lose their job and radio stations cease to exist. And I'm like, this industry needs to fix up a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to sort of think about, especially from that point of view. Now, before we move on, I want to bring up this comment from what I can assume is an Arsenal fan. Now, I know you'll both be interested in this. It says, we're going to batter you at the weekend. Like Ty said, you should be scared of Arsenal. Now, I'll come to you, Henry, because I know you like a rant. But for me personally, it's very hard to be scared of a team whose only good player hasn't scored more than Aaron Wan-Bissaka this season. Now, Henry, I'll let you take the floor.
For starters, I'm not scared of Arsenal, and I know it's not in the comment, but I'm certainly not scared of Ty. Jesus. And yeah, I mean, the fact that an Arsenal fan has to gratify himself by coming onto a United podcast is a bit embarrassing in its own right. And yeah, I mean, I've said my comments on Arsenal before. Weak and spineless, two of the words I've used before, and I'll use them again. Last night was perfect evidence of that. You can have as many shots in the game as you want. If you've got Lacazette through the middle, you are not going to score. So yeah, that's, I'm not scared of Arsenal. I'm not scared of their imaginary treble with the Emirates Pre-Season Cup, which is probably the only trophy they'll win in the next the next 5 years. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm not scared of Arsenal whatsoever. I never have been. I never will be. And I don't think United should ever be fearful of them because, they're full of a bunch of, I don't know, wet. I guess that's one of the words. So,
just know, yeah. I'm going to make sort of highlights of this just in case we lose so I can post it all over Twitter. But, guys,
they're spineless.
Guys, we'll ask you something actually United related then. Sort of, how are you feeling with the upcoming game? Because, it used to be a huge game. I know I'm too young to appreciate how big of a game Arsenal Man United is. But for you, sort of, how are you looking forward to the game?
Well, firstly, I just want to say that I am scared of Ty. Like, he's about, what is he, like 45 years old, going around dressing like that still? That's scary, if you ask me. I don't know how much money he's getting out of it, but fucking hell, you'd have to pay me a bit to go around dressed in full Man United gear constantly and a Man United water bottle. But as for the game against Arsenal, I actually think it could be a really good game. I don't know, because I think both teams are going to have to defend so deep, aren't they? Because obviously, like, we've both got players that can get in behind, and they'll be trying to do with Aubameyang what we're trying to do with Rashford, Greenwood, Martial. So I think if we score first, I will be very, very confident. Like, I can't see Arsenal as being the type of team. Well, I mean, Arsenal have never been the type of team with bottle, have they really? Otherwise, they would have been more successful in terms of trophies over the last few years. So I think once the heads go down, I think United are going to be the team to sort of get in there and do something. But I can't see Arsenal sort of gripping the game again once they've lost grasp of it. Whereas I can see United doing that a little bit more. Like, I guess if Arsenal were to score in that game, I can sort of see United coming back and still having a lot of fight, because we've seen it so many times this season. I think I think it could be a corker in terms of goals. Like, I think that we're going to see some like absolute worldy attempts. If we don't see a worldy go in, we're going to see some attempts, because there's going to be no space behind the defense for either team. So I think we've got the better of the long shot takers. So I think we'll win. But you know what? I do think it'll be closer than you're letting on. I think Arsenal might be quite good this season.
Yeah, definitely be an interesting game. Now, sort of bringing it back around to what we were saying, obviously the sort of thing we had for the podcast. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, unless obviously Henry, you had any more questions about sort of radio.
No, go ahead.
Well, obviously you sort of trending for the wrong reasons, not personally, but the other week. Now there was a video going around that someone had taken where he was hurling abuse at you while you were, I believe you were doing some presenting work for a Norwegian TV station or something along those lines. Now, sort of what really happened there? Because a video only tells one side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, you say the video only tells one side of the story, but I'll be totally honest, from that video, you pretty much get the whole story. I had a text from a mate who works for, I think it's TV2, I think they're called, something like that, in Norway. It's like a Scandinavian news channel. And he was like, we're doing something on Manchester United, because obviously there's the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer link, so they're quite interested in United at the moment. And they were like, we need a United fan. Can you come down and chat to us? So this was unpaid. This is just me helping a mate out here. Went outside Old Trafford and he was asking me a few questions about United. It was literally like 5-10 minutes live on TV. And then literally towards, I think the last 30 seconds, I could hear this guy shouting something in my ear. And it was then that Lars took over and handed back to the studio, and nothing was heard on camera from what this guy was shouting, quite luckily. But as I turned round and we sort of stopped shooting, this guy who had stopped, got off his bike and was shouting stuff, which I couldn't hear while we were actually on camera. Obviously, I could hear it now. And he got on his bike to cycle off and he said, "Fan cam nonce," which I was like, what? Fucking hell, no wonder you're not on telly then, mate. And at that point, he got off his bike, started filming me, essentially just started hurling abuse at me. Which, it happens, I suppose, if you do quite well and you get to a very lucky position in life where you get to talk about the football club you love in front of a camera. This time it wasn't exactly getting paid, but to do that for a living that I do, then you're going to have a lot of people who are going to try and sort of bring you down from that pedestal, even though I never put myself on a pedestal, really. So this guy was shouting, "Fan cam nonce" and all that. He says, "You're worse. You're the worst thing about this club. You're worse than the Glazers," which is incredible, by the way, because I was literally on Scandinavian TV slagging off the Glazers. And I don't mean like saying, "Oh, well, the ownership isn't right." I mean, I was literally saying Manchester United will not win a Premier League title while the Glazers and Ed Woodward are making the decisions there. I was outright naming them, as I always have done, by the way, on every fan channel I've been on as well. Always been vocally critical of the Glazers. Since I was a kid, since 2005, I remember all the protests then. I remember the first one that I was involved in was in like 2009, when we won the Champions League the year earlier, but we were still protesting because of how bad these owners were, and we knew how bad it could potentially get. And here we are. So this guy was saying, "You're worse than the Glazers. You're the worst thing about this club. You're making money off the back of the club," which obviously I'm not. I wasn't even on a fan channel at that time. I don't know whether it was a case of mistaken identity, but I don't think it was. Because then this fella who had filmed it, and you've got to remember as well, I don't mind admitting this, when you're in a professional environment and you've got your head on and you're speaking to a live TV camera, there is something very intimidating about someone coming up and saying something like that to you, because it's the sort of thing that if someone said to you in the street in a normal situation, if you're on a night out, then you'd want to knock them out, really. But when someone says that to you when you're in a professional environment, it really does fuck your anxiety up a little bit, because even if I turned round and said to him, "Oi, fuck off your bell end," if I said that, then that would have reflected badly on me. And my employers at the BBC would have been like, "Yeah, you can't say that to people no matter what they're saying at you." Or they could have said that. I don't know what they would have said, but they could have said that. But I didn't. I just laughed it off, because at the end of the day, this guy was talking pure nonsense, and I've just laughed it off. It's happened before, whatever. But he was filming it, and then a little bit later on, I was driving about, and he'd put it up on Twitter, this video, and it was quite extraordinary reaction, really, because about 99% of the people who replied called him what he is, and that's an ignorant, idiotic, moronic, very lonely young man. And that's what I think a lot of these people are. They're angry and they're very angry young men. And I don't think a lot of it is to do with football, by the way. I think there's a lot of things going on in these people's lives, because I've never been in a situation in my life where I could imagine stopping me little BMX on the way to the tram and hurling abuse at someone who's actually doing well for themselves. Like, that just shows that you've maybe got some stuff going on. But obviously, a lot of the thing is with these lads is all they have is football. So, that's all they've got going for them in life. So the fact that that isn't going well as well, they're going to take their frustrations out on someone. And that guy saw an opportunity to do that. But yeah, that's all it was. He put the video on Twitter and everyone called him out for the bell end he is. And that's all you can do, I suppose.
Yeah. Sorry, it definitely struck me how well, at the time you dealt with the situation, and obviously how well you've dealt with it since. But, I imagine this thing isn't sort of an anomaly. I imagine it happens fairly frequently. So, sort of how often do things like this happen, and how did you used to deal with them, if it was ever any different to how it was now?
So I'm gonna just remember the few times in the past that it has happened. I remember the first time it happened, I was about like 19, 20, and I was doing a video outside Old Trafford. But I suppose when you're in that scenario, then I'm not saying you're asking for it. You're absolutely not asking for it. And no one deserves to be abused while they're at work. But it was after United had lost, and maybe I'd made it a little bit too obvious, and I learned my lesson from that. But I was stood outside Old Trafford, and my cameraman was with me, and this guy just came up behind me, like literally from behind. Didn't even see him coming, and just shoved me. And I remember being like, "Whoa, what the fuck's going on here?" I was like, I didn't expect that while I was working. But then after that, I was sort of quite aware that it could happen. It has happened since from people of relevance, actually, who I'm not, prepared to name. But I remember at Stoke away, I was doing something similar, and this fella who I had basically called out on Twitter for being a racist, because he is a racist. He referred to one of my friends, one of my Asian friends, he referred to them using the P word. He referred to another one of my friends as a Mong. I didn't think he was a very nice person at all, so I called him out. And this fella basically came up while I was filming from behind, and this is a fella who's about 50, something like that, grabbed me on the back of the neck. Didn't know what was going on here. I was like, I don't mind admitting, I was shitting it. I was like, fuck, am I getting stabbed here? What's going on? And shoved me behind a bus. And then these policemen just happened to be walking past at exactly that time, and he fucking legged it. And I was like, all right, that was weird. And then the maddest thing happened a few months after that. It might have even been like a year after that, where this fella, a relation of his, stopped me at a game in Holland, and he just a bit of a trigger warning for people with racist language here. But this fella came up to me and asked me how my black cunt mate was. And he was referring to a friend of mine who's black, who's mixed race. And I just could not believe it. And he'd said it on camera as well. And I was like, do you realise you've just said that into a microphone? Like, do you realise we've got that footage? And this fella was pissed. He was a relation of this guy, and he just wanted to start a fight all night. And this guy followed me home. I was in Holland. I didn't know where I was. I was on my way back to a hotel, and he followed me home. So these are the lengths that some people are willing to go to for a fight. But the way I see it is, I'm not a guy who wants to start fights and wants to get in fights. It's not my bag. I find it all a little bit embarrassing and very cringy, very juvenile. And yeah, like I say, it just shows that they've got something wrong going on in their lives more than anything. It's a reflection of them more than it is you. But you just come across a lot of very angry young men at the moment, and yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of a scary thought that because you've got some sort of platform, that instantly makes you a target for people for no real other reason. Now, I just want to move on to one more thing, unless Henry's got any questions relating to that.
Well, I was just going to say, how conceivably stupid you have to be, not only to do it in the first place, but to do it on camera. How stupid you have to be, and to film someone and put it up on Twitter. How can you not know that you're in the wrong when you're doing that? That absolutely baffles me, and that sadly shows the intellect of some of our fan base, and it is actually embarrassing.
It's because I think it's because they know. Well, this person in particular who put this video on Twitter, he knows he's in the wrong, and he knows he's going to get a reaction from 99% of people telling him he's a bellend. But guess what? He doesn't care, and I genuinely think it's because they don't have a lot to live for. Like, I know that sounds really tragic, but if you're putting stuff out there like that and you genuinely don't mind people seeing you in that light, then you just clearly have no reason to care about anything.
To put a target on your back is just, especially with the way football is at the moment and Twitter and how much abuse you can get, to do something like that in the first place, it is just brainless to me. It's just so stupid.
And you wouldn't have done it if I was 6'7". You know what I mean? You wouldn't have done it if I was a big fucking muscle man. He does it because I'm a skinny white lad who, you know, doesn't get in fights and is quite a sensitive dude, and that's why they do it. And that's also why it doesn't affect me too much as well.
Well, it makes them look even worse.
Yeah,
it makes them look even worse.
That's what I think.
It definitely does. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about. Obviously, me and Henry are people who want to go into the media side of things, and you obviously it wasn't because of Full Time Devils, but obviously you were in radio beforehand. But Full Time Devils seems to have sort of boosted your profile, and you've now made sort of a career in radio from BBC Manchester. But you know, you've got people like, I believe Sam Homewood was also on Full Time Devils, and now he's an employee of Man United, I believe. You know, he does podcasts, the official podcast for them and everything. Now, do you think this is something we'll see more and more, where sort of people from sort of the fan channels and just general fans, if obviously credible, is this sort of a route into the media, do you believe?
Yeah, I do think so, if you look at it that way. I think especially because on fan channels, obviously they have fans on there, and that is who the channel is for, and the vast majority of the stuff is done by fans and presented by fans. But it is always good to have an actual sort of presenter on there who is gonna, you know, toe the middle line, if you like. And I think that's what someone like Sam was great at doing when he was on Full Time Devils. And also, let's not forget, Sam was already on TV when he came on Full Time Devils. He was working for, I think it was CITV. I think that's scrambled, that ITV was on. But he's a vastly successful presenter. He's a presenter that I look up to massively. He's an incredible presenter, and he got a job on MUTV, and I think he's a great presenter for them. I think it works really well for what he wants to do as well. He's very much a positive Manchester United fan. He wants to look at things from the positive angle all the time. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to look at things in a positive way and you actually want to be happy about supporting your football club, then that's a great thing. So him working for MUTV absolutely works for Sam. I'll be totally honest, from my own perspective, like I have had conversations with producers at MUTV in the past, and they've thought, you know, maybe we can do something with you, and maybe we could, and maybe we couldn't, but they wouldn't touch me with a barge pole, because I'm tweeting all the time about, and I'm not saying it makes Sam or anyone else less of a fan because they don't do this. That's absolutely not the case. But I'm always tweeting anti-Glazer stuff, and I'm always saying anti-Glazer stuff on my radio show, which I'm very much not only just allowed to do, but I'm encouraged to do, because it's my opinion. I'm always encouraged to have my opinion strongly. So I'm always calling out the Glazers and stuff like that on the radio, and I'm always criticizing players as well. If players aren't good enough, I'm going to criticize them on the radio. That's just what I do. I'm going to criticize the club when they make mistakes, and the hierarchy there. So I don't think MUTV would want to go anywhere near me. And if MUTV did come up to me and said, okay, we've got this job here for you, but you can't tweet about the Glaze anymore, then I'd say, right, well, if that job doesn't suit me, then does it? Go and get someone else. And I think that's probably why I've never appeared on Manchester United television.
It's definitely a weird one from sort of our point of view. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm assuming it's similar for you, Henry, as well. You sort of, it's not so much now, but I imagine in the future it'll be hard to sort of blur the lines, especially depending on what you want to go down. But it'll be hard to sort of blur the lines between giving your actual opinion and remaining credible, and, you know, making yourself still employable in that way. You know, I've on many occasions wanted to tweet about the Glazers, but just purely because of lack of knowledge in the subject, I haven't. But, you know, sort of, Henry, does that feel like it could be a problem sort of going forward, especially with employees like Man United?
No hope in hell I'm getting a job with United. I know that now. But I'm honest to myself. I'm honest to everyone I speak to, and at the end of the day, you know, if I wasn't criticizing, and you know, I've got my dad's a United fan, and I don't argue with him about it, but you know, we have debates and stuff because I'm not so anti-Glazer that I want to do this and that. I'm a realist, I think, and at the end of the day, I'm not happy with the situation at United, and if I'm not happy, then I'll make it known that I'm not happy, because there's no point in me sitting down and saying, oh yeah, we had a fantastic performance against Chelsea, you know, every player on the pitch was absolutely fantastic, because that's just bullshit. I know it is myself, so I can't say it. So yeah, I know for a fact that, you know, some people, you know, as Gaz said, they wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot barge pole. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't go anywhere near you. But that's just the reality of the situation. And I'm not gonna change my personality because I might want a job in the future, or change how I tweet because I think it might change my career or something. You'll go where you're destined to go, and your career will go where you want it to go, I guess, to a degree. So yeah, I'm not frightened of not getting jobs at United, and I think that even if they, if someone tells you to change your personality, then I think you're just being dishonest to yourself. So what's the point?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be said for that. Now, I think that's sort of the end, unless, Henry, you got anything to add?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
No, I love it, guys. That was a great laugh.
Well, yeah, like Henry said, thank you for coming on. You've been a brilliant guest, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Anything you want to not that it would really boost your numbers, but anything you want to plug at the end or anything?
Oh, of course, mate. Yeah, Talking Balls, BBC Radio Manchester, 6 till 7 p.m. Get on it. It's a good laugh.
Check it out if you haven't. And thanks as ever to Henry for joining me. And we'll see you next time, hopefully for a preview before the RB Leipzig game coming up. So yeah, if you haven't already, like and subscribe, and we'll see.